Hello, everyone. My name is Alejandro, and welcome to the next assignment for this class. So, last week we did hard surface modeling, and I had you guys model that incendiary grenade from Apex Legends. So, um, what we're going to try to do this week is kind of go the complete opposite direction and work on organic modeling. Now, for this lesson, we're going to be using textures only because part of organic modeling is using textures to manipulate what you want. So I'll be doing 3 videos. This one will be the first piece, and then second one will be the second piece, and then finally the third video will be the third piece. They should be fairly short, except for the second one, only because you have to make a lot of uh, plant cards and apply them everywhere. So let's just get started with the first one. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make a plane. And to do what I was just doing right now, just hold Shift, right click, and you have a little pie menu. Come over to plane, make your plane. And then I'm going to come over to the channel editor and come over to inputs. And within inputs, I'm going to select the subdivision width and the subdivision height. So to select both of them, just hold Shift. And then within the viewport, I'm just going to drag the middle mouse button to the left. And as you can see, it lowers the amount of subdivisions. I'm going to leave it at 2. And then from here, I'm going to, you know what, actually, let's leave one of them at 1. There we go. So there you go. So raise this up. And there you go. You basically made your your model. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when we start making the texture to go with um, this will just be a card. The texture will kind of be showing the quote unquote model by itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in some textures. You should have the textures in the file of Canvas. So just go over there, look it up, and the files you need should be there. So to start, I'm just going to make a Lambert, call it, I don't know, weeds, because that's what we're going to be working with. Enter. So I have mine right here. Again, you can look in Canvas and the folder should be there. So, or not the folder, the files should be in the file section of Canvas. So I'm going to just drag and drop. So what we have here is an albedo and an alpha. So the alpha we're going to hook up to color. And then the alpha we're going to hook up the color to the transparency node. So notice it's not going to be translucency, but transparency. And yes, the nodes are green and then hooking up to red, but that's not a problem. So let's do that. And just for a quick example of what's going to happen, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to hold right click, and then at the very bottom of this drop down, I'm going to go to add existing material. I'm going to go and select weeds. Have it selected, but nothing shows up. That's fine. Just select your mesh. You don't have to select it. Just come up here to this little ribbon of icons and select this checkered looking sphere, and that'll show you that your textures are here. But we have a problem. The alpha is cutting out everything outside of the weeds, and we want it to be the reverse. So an easy way to fix this is just to come over here to the attribute editor, select your mesh, and then your material should be up here in these tabs. And I have it written down as weeds. So if I wanted to be more specific, I come over to the material that I make and I just say underscore. I use MAT. I just use it as an acronym for material. So now it says weed mat. Just close this. And as you can see, Up here, it shows me the material. So just go over here, select it, and come down to the transparency, which is right below color. Click on that. And then before we fix this, I just want to point out you'll get better results by changing the color space because this is black and white. You can select either raw or one of these called scene linear. It does the same effect, but these are basically giving you an input that is just pure black and white, which is what the image is. If it was color, you would go to sRGB. But since you don't need to, you can leave the alpha on raw, or you can change the alpha to raw. So now to fix this, we're going to go over here to effects, and this drop down, there's an invert. Just select that, and now we have our textures inverted. I'm going to bring this up. So there you go. With this, now what we're going to do is we're going to bring it into the UV editor. So kind of how we did last time with the wooden palettes. I'm going to come up here to the workspace, click UV editing, and then from here, I'm going to select my mesh, and I'm going to go over to this area right here. So within these ribbons of icons, you have a bunch of other tools and stuff that you can use, and we've talked about a few of them before. However, if you kind of can't really read what you're seeing here, and it can be kind of hard to tell, just come down to this little arrow next to what says weeds albedo.tiff. Select alpha, and there you go. Now you have a clear picture of what is going on with your alpha, so you can make your cuts where you need to. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go to vertex, and I'm just going to start scaling this, and I'm going to go for kind of just putting a box around the middle. Oh, right, okay. Never mind, you got to go to UVs. I forget that sometimes. Just move this over here. Move these over here. Drag that this way. Drag this up and kind of close. With the bottom pieces, we can honestly clip it because this technically is in the ground. So you don't have to, cover the whole thing. You can just clip it if you want to. I'm going to clip it just for the purpose of this video, but use it to your discretion. Sometimes it'll be a good idea to clip it, sometimes it won't, but honestly, it just depends on your project and what the project is calling for. Come over here. Ah, I see. I had soft selection. That's why it was working that way. Okay. So we have that. But our mesh looks a little weird. I'm just going to scale it like this. That's fine. Okay, so now we're going to make the other ones. So hold on. Before I do that, actually, I'm just going to bring the pivot down to there. There you go. Okay. That way, when I'm moving these around, they're on the ground and they're not just floating in space. So next I'm going to do, I'm going to make the small one on the left, and just before I do anything else, I'll copy the one and do the other side as well. So let's start with this tiny one. And again, we'll just kind of do the same thing that we were doing. Affecting the UVs, or yeah, affecting the UVs. I was going to say vertexes. Just move them, scale them to the shape you want. Feel free to leave space out here if you need to leave space out here. You don't have to be 100% close like that. Give your UVs some space if you need to. Obviously, don't drag it all the way out there because if you have it over here like that, it's going to bleed into the other side, which would be over here. So just keep it within the area, but you don't have to be 100% accurate. Again, I'm doing this again just so I can clip the bottom of the weed because we don't need to have that one specifically. It's going to be in the ground, so unless I have this weed pulled out and lying on the floor, I wouldn't need to have the root. Right, so now we have that, and let's just scale it down so that it's kind of the same size, or at least relative to what we have. There you go. And then finally, this last one. So I'm just gonna not even drag it over. I'm just gonna start moving the UVs over. Scale these so they're flat. Move all that over there. There we go. Scale this down. And then just, yeah, that's fine. Okay. So scale this down to about there. And now we're going to shrink it a little bit just so it's, again, it has the same kind of shape. And this one can kind of be squished. There we go. Right. So now you have your weeds. So technically what you can do now is you can just copy a piece like so, and then turn it so it's like that. So this technique will kind of fake the look of a 3D plant. And you've probably seen this before in older games. They still use this technique, so it's not to say that this isn't used anymore. But a lot of AAA games, they'll have specific plants where like they model this stem right here, or they'll model the actual thing itself. But for our case, and in still in quite a bit of cases, they use cards. It's not. It definitely saves on memory and space. And when you start doing things like this for a game, you need to save all the space you can for the bigger things like, I don't know, particles, character models. So, um, you know, this still holds true to an extent, more so now than before. I mean, before, maybe probably back in like the PlayStation 2 era, this was what plants would always look like that. So let's get a bit more stuff going on here. And before we move on, I'm just gonna make I'll just make another plane, and I can just leave it like that. I'm just gonna scale it up, and this is gonna be our ground. So let's just say for all intents and purposes, this is our ground. There would be a ground texture. If you want to add one, feel free, but I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna do this. So I'm just gonna move some around here, move that around, say that looks nice. I can literally grab one of these, and who's gonna tell me that that's wrong, right? It's just a weed. I can change the shape and size if and whenever I want to. This one can just honestly be a grown or bigger version of it, like that. And then I'm just gonna grab that, bring it down, and there you go. Like that would be a good organic model of weeds. It's just cards. It's nothing that difficult about it. Now, if you want to add a bit of depth, you can come over here. And the reason why I kept these edges was so I could do something like this. Just selecting edges, pushing them out. And what this does, it just adds a bit more depth, especially if you're looking at it at different angles. So it's not much, but it is better than just having a flat card. And if you wanted to, you could push this even further. So what I'm going to do here is is hit Control Shift X. That'll bring out my multi-cut tool, and I'm going to hold Shift Control. I'm going to make a cut that snaps to like to a degree here. I'm going to hold it, hit cut, and then I'm going to grab these edges and I'm going to rotate them. And I'm going to grab the yellow circle out here. It's camera based, so wherever I'm viewing, it'll bend it at that angle. So there we go. Sure, it looks weird right now, but you'll see it'll make sense. And then I'm going to shift select, so now I have all 4 of these edges selected. I'm just going to rotate it one more time. And then I'm just going to grab this middle one. I'm not looking for perfection here. You know, you can do something like this. Sure, it's a bit exaggerated, but, you know, that's what game art is. That's what movies are. It's exaggerated pieces. And at any time, don't think that you can't alter your UVs to get them how you want. You can come in here and just affect them. So say you want to have like a nice looking top detail over here. Yeah, you may have some stretching going on here, but you can literally just grab one of these, copy it, put it right over, and no one will be the wiser, right? And you don't have to tell them either. You can just be like, yeah, I did that. That was intentional. I know what I'm doing. So to finish this off, I just bring it down more. So they're kind of touching the ground. Probably this one a little bit more too. It's kind of, the stems are showing where I kind of don't want them to. And there you go. That's what I would make. If you want to get like very extra detailed, and I mean, none of this was really, how you want to say it. None of this is really accurate, I guess, of how weeds grow. But you know, if you don't like showing where your cards cut, you can add some, what I'd say, tertiary detail, and that's just kind of like the tiny detail you don't notice. Is you can do something like this where you just kind of cover it up with smaller details like that. Sure, it depends on how you're going to texture your ground. So clearly, because we have no plane, you can see, or plane, we don't have any texture on our ground plane. You can see where the UV or the UVs are clipping, or the plant cards are clipping. Sorry, getting mixed up with all my terminology here. But yeah, I mean, that looks pretty good. You can just grab all these and just do whatever you want with them. It's a good idea to kind of move your plants around so they're not just straight up like that. Put them in an angle or something. That'll make it look more interesting. No one, at least from what I know, no one's ever heard of upright plants. The sun, already, like if you think about it, the sun is always hitting the plants and the plants always look towards the direction of the sun for the most part. And I feel like, especially when making stuff in 3D, you want to follow that rule only because that's how most people look at plants. Um, Again, it's like a case by case kind of thing, but for most people, especially if you're trying to show someone something like this, they'll bring up that thing of just, hey, you know, plants look at the sun, so make sure that they point in the direction. But you know, you can get a little creative and just kind of move things around, make it a little messy. But yeah, see, perfectly done. Don't worry about this backside where you can't see into the texture. This is just Maya's rendering engine. If you put this in something else, like say Unreal, you'll get a similar problem, but it's something that you can fix. So don't worry, it's not anything huge. That's just the way the engine renders the texture. But yeah, so this is how I would model a card for weeds or grass or whatever you're going to be plopping into the wherever whatever scene you're using. And there you go. All right. From here, we're going to go to working on the shrub, and I will see you in the next video. Later, guys.